questions.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see how many accounts Greg logs in on tonight. I talked to him yesterday, so I know he's going to be on board.
Number 2, let's take a look at the lineup for Colorado Lucas and Jackie.
Set 442 and a diamond in the middle that allows Bryce to.
All right, if I muted you, it's because I can hear your TV in the background. Sorry. All right, just let a few other folks in. I don't see Greg yet. So I don't know if we want to give him one more minute. Otherwise, maybe John, you can get us started. There he is. Greg, are you with us?
I'm there.
All right.
Just in time.
Last but not least.
Well, that's the way I like to make the entrance. I couldn't quite get this. I'm using a different computer, so that's fine.
All right. Well, I'm ready whenever you are.
All right. So we'll call the meeting to order and we'll have a roll call.
Sure. First, is it being recorded, Elise?
It is not. Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you. All right, roll call. Molzon,
Here.
Marr,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Bano,
Here.
Sievertson,
Here.
Carpenter,
Here.
Smithback,
Here.
and Schnelly.
Here.
Thank you.
Wow. Look at that, everybody. Good. Thank you very much. Next item is the approval of the Plan Commission minutes from March 4th, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move. Mar.
Mar had a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Molzon.
Moves on. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to community input. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to talk about anything that's not on the agenda? It's for information only. Is there anybody on that? Okay, none. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 5, public appearances. First item is a public hearing to discuss possible recommendation of village board ordinance number 21-06, approve the general development plan, GDP, submitted by Habitat for Humanity, Bank County for plan development zoning with MR underlying zoning. On the hearing. Okay, Elise, staff report.
All right. Thanks, Greg. So the site should look familiar to the planning commissioners. We reviewed this a couple times conceptually last summer, and then again last fall when we did the comprehensive plan amendment. So that's when you all recommended a change from single family to 2-family residential that was passed and approved by the board last fall. And since that time, we've not seen any other applications from them. So it's been a little while, but they've been working hard on updating the site and trying to fit everything in, and you know, just making a overall improved site plan. So hopefully they'll be pleased with the changes that have been made. But the total number of duplexes has changed a little bit from what was seen before. There was sort of a couple different concepts, but what Habitat's landed on is 8 duplex homes, so 4 duplex buildings. And just to orient folks, this is on 769 Janesville Street, right across from Wisco, and pretty close to the Woodland Village, right next to Woodland Village Apartments, so right by the Janesville Perry intersection. This was the sort of, yeah, this is the GDP kind of site plan overview, and we'll get into some of the exhibits later on. But they are requesting plan development zoning here. There's the flexibilities requested are listed out here, A through N. A lot of them are related to density, lot area, etc. I think overall the change from what was originally shown as 10 units down to 8 allows a lot more breathing room on the site. There's also a stormwater pond in the back of the site towards the north end of the site, which is really going to improve stormwater for neighbors, even off-site to the north there, with a walking path around the pond. So these are the flexibilities they requested. Again, lots kind of mostly setback and density uses or flexibilities and parking flexibilities. So we have received some comments from the fire chief, very minor, mostly just about signage for no parking on the road here. So I'll go down to the site plan and maybe turn this over to folks from Habitat and Becker to speak a little bit more towards the plan and why they decided to go in this direction. I know that they have made efforts to acknowledge and kind of interpret the history of the site, and so they can talk a little bit about that, and then also maintaining what landscape buffer they can, especially back in this corner. There's a lot of really great large trees that should be able to be left there. So I'll hand it over to Habitat to speak a little bit more towards the plans, and I'll just scroll through the exhibits.
Sure.
Thanks, Louise. Sorry, Jackie.
Go for it.
Steve Hanrahan with Habitat. I'll make a few comments and then turn it over to Jackie for the details. I just wanted to thank all of you for the time tonight to take a look at this. We have put a lot of thought and effort into all the comments that we received from the commission as well as from the neighbors. I met with the Historical Society again recently on site and asked them to get back to us with a proposal of what exactly they would like to do with some of the relics, if I can call them that. So they're going to get back to us as soon as they can on that. But there is an outlot that's available and also area around the pond for that. We also have Adam Held Baldwin on. He's our construction director, and he can address the actual, construction materials and probably answer all of your questions about that. But at this point, I want to turn it over to Jackie. You can explain the GDP and take it away.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. My name is Jackie Monfils. I have been working with Gary Blazek. Many of you might know him already, with Veerbecker representing Habitat for Humanity, Dane County. This area is right off of Janesville Street, and we have some rich history. It's a formal Bible camp. There are, I think we counted somewhere around 60, 70 relics on this site that are evident of the histories past and rich past that Steve had referred to. Some of those relics that we were hoping that we might be able to preserve are just too close to some of the grading that needs to be done. So as part of this proposal, we would like to relocate some of those relics to the back part of the northern part of the lot around the walking path, and perhaps have some signage and information about the significance of this site. And some of those pictures are shown in the GDP SIP document that was presented. And you know, we are looking for approval for an MR8 underlying district that is similar to the housing districts to the north and to the east. And then there's single family along Janesville Street to the northwest. I know that in your comprehensive plan, you are trying to improve the frontage of Janesville Street. So that is why we have a small outlot adjacent to Janesville that will be maintained by the HOA, in addition to the stormwater outlot, the outlet that encompasses the stormwater to the rear, the northern end of the lot. So if you're wondering why that is there, we realize that that is an important aspect of your future look of Janesville Street. We are looking to do the planned development process because this 1.25 acres includes an existing single family residential lot, and we went through this platting process, or we're in the process of this, to separate that lot and sell it off to help fund the rest of this project. And I know that Steve will go through some other funding discussion possibly after me. Right now we have duplexes that have single car garages. We have a stall available out front, so that would be 2 spaces per unit. Plus we have visitor parking at the end, so that we will be able to accommodate some temporary visitors in this location. In terms of landscape buffers, we completed a tree survey, but it was after this submittal, so that's why it's not as detailed here, but we do have all of that information, and our goal is to preserve as many of the existing trees and foliage in that brown area to the northwest as shown, and still accommodating the point values that are discussed in the ordinances. In terms of drainage, this site is kind of unique. The stormwater facility to the north will take on some site drainage from adjacent properties, and to help alleviate this, we have to have a pump station to redirect some of that water back into Janesville Street. So we will be helping the adjacent properties who have been experiencing some damp, wet spots in the rear of their lots to the Woodland Village. So that cost is substantial, but we will be fixing one problem for these neighbors. I think that is probably a good place to stop. Adam, I don't know if you would like to kind of discuss any building materials, front facades, that nature.
Sure, yeah, there's hi, Adam Baldwin, Construction Director from Habitat for Humanity. There is an example facade earlier here. I think that might be what Lisa's scrolling to. Yeah, so this kind of shows a very typical 2-story garage separating the units with a kind of bonus area, either a 4th bedroom or raw attic space above the garage for extra storage, unfinished basements. There's a very similar version to this plan that's already been built in Oregon. See on the corner of Landover and Dunn Avenue. There's a pair of these homes that we built 10 or so years ago, and designed by a local architect, Arlen Kai, previously of Architecture Network, who was a big early supporter of Habitat and the Oregon resident. So they would be mostly the same, with the exception of the corner unit, which would have some added detailing around the Janesville's facing side. kind of pretty that up so it's not just a long span. Yeah, as far as exterior materials, pretty standard to most new construction, primarily vinyl siding. One change from what's shown here is we do a full foundation on the porch instead of the porch piers, but otherwise very similar. There's some colors noted there at the top. Those are some of our standard colors that we use. Each unit would be required to be different, so they're not the same unit, just repeated over and over again. Those are all the basics. If there's any further questions about that or what a typical Habitat house looks like, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, we have anything else from Elise? Did you have anything else, or anybody else from petitioner side comments?
Maybe Adam, can you just mention the bedroom sort of sizes, square footage, typical of these units? I know there's some floor plans and maybe
Sure.
Following slides, but.
Sure, yeah. Habitat homes in general are on the modest size. Usually our 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes are in the 1,000 square foot range, and then up to 12 to 1,400 square feet living space for the 4-bedroom, 2-bath, which is about where we max out. Just because once they get larger, the appraised values start to go up, they become unaffordable for families in our income bracket. This one is a bit unique in that all of the potential rooms would be above grade. One of our typical cost saving measures is to finish basement spaces. And in this case, since this is already a duplex and storage space will be at a premium, it's a fully unfinished basement. So there would be room for the families to expand in the future if they wanted to do that. Otherwise, interiors are pretty typical open floor plans for living dining. And in these cases, if there's a full finished bathroom upstairs with on the first floor, one that can be finished. So that will kind of depend on the family size. We have some kind of internal metrics based on how many people living in the home and whether they qualify for a full second bathroom to be finished. Otherwise, it would double as a pantry with a future plumbing stubbed in. As much as possible, we try to make them flexible to different living styles and different backgrounds from our families, but it also leaves some room to grow as the families grow.
Thanks. Yeah, I know I just got a couple questions about that from the community, so I wanted to make sure we cover that.
All right. Well, is there anybody from the public that would like to have any comments or questions?
On the house or on the plan in general?
I'm sorry, say again.
Are you asking for questions about the house or the plan in general?
Well, the plan in general as presented right now,
Could you go back to that site map?
Yep, I'm trying
Third
to
one?
scroll back to that. A lot of great materials. in
There
here.
you go.
we go.
Okay, so my questions are, where this
Wait, ma'am.
retaining pond is, and you
Excuse me.
intend to have,
Mary, I'm sorry, I see your name and everything. Do we have that all written down for record purposes?
I don't know, I just told Elise I was here. My name is Mary Norwell, and I'm representing the Oregon Area Historical Society.
Okay. And you live within the village?
I do live in the village. I live on Heidi Way.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Mary, we have to make a public record, that's all.
Well, now you got my name.
Well, I already see it, Mary, so thank you.
Okay, so on this plan where the retaining pond is where you want to put some of what you're calling relics and what I would call artifacts. Is this accessible to the public from this side road here? Over by, let's see, I don't know what street that is, but would everyone that wanted to see it have to go down through the private driveway and back?
The majority of those artifacts that we would try and save would be back at the end of the private drive. We could certainly consider in that front area there's some of those stone benches and some signage there.
That would be wonderful. And we had agreed last night at the board meeting that whatever you could do for us at the front, we could provide the signage for. We would be happy to do the signage for those. And then I heard you say that you were going to move some of those relics. If they're movable, would it be possible for you to move a couple up to our museum, which is on Lincoln Street?
I think we could start some discussions on that. There are quite a few artifacts, and we certainly cannot put all 60 of them in the back.
No, that's true. And obviously there's some that aren't going to move either.
Correct.
But we were thinking if we could get 2 or 3, if you would be willing to help us get 2 or 3 of those artifacts moved to the museum, that would be really nice. And like I said, whatever you'll put out front where people can see them, we would be happy to handle the signage for.
Thank you, Mary. I'm sure we will be in touch.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. Anybody else from the public, general public? Okay, Plan Commission members. Any questions at this point?
Greg, this is Patrick. I have a few comments and one question. First of all, to the applicants, thank you. This is probably one of the most complete packets that I've seen on my time in the Plan Commission. You've done, I think, an excellent job. You've taken into account comments that Plan Commission members made at the last meeting. You've paid respect to the neighbors, to the history. All around, I think it's an elegant solution. I'm very excited about this project. The only question I have in talking about the elevations and looking at your color palette, you mentioned that all the units won't be the same to prevent monotony, which is great. You have 4 main units. How many different color combinations are you looking at? And then the other question along with that is, in the packet, you're showing some of the historical elements, and you're showing 2 photographs of facades with stone on them. And I apologize if I missed it in your introduction, but when I look at the elevations, I don't see any stonework.
I can answer that. It is not easy to find actual representations of what will be going in. I would have been happy to take photos of the existing Habitat home in the Village of Oregon, but in February, you can imagine how pretty that is. And I was trying to find a facade that mimicked you know, the angles and the colors, but yes, the stone facade is not representative, but it was the closest I could get.
And I could say, as far as the color palette is concerned, this is a small sample of some of our more common ones, but typically we work with about 8 different major siding colors, a few different roofing combinations and trim combinations. In this case, what we do in most communities is that's one of the few things that we let our homeowners choose. Most of our homes, they don't get to choose much. They get to choose some interior finishes and that sort of thing. But that is usually one of the things they choose. And we usually say, just, you can't be the same as the house next to you or the one right across the street. In this case, since most of the facades are very similar and it's in such a tight space, I think we'd endeavor to have all 4 units be, you know, their individual color pattern, so that there wouldn't be any two that looked exactly the same. And with that, we have maybe a little less choice, but as it is with 2 different families in a duplex situation, there'd have to be some sort of compromise there anyway. So that might just not be a choice the homeowners get to make in this case, for the sake of the whole neighborhood.
The only question I've got has to do with the long-term maintenance and upkeep. These are owned by the each individual duplex member, correct?
Correct.
So it is their responsibility to maintain the individual units then? There's no association with this development?
There will be a homeowners association, but not for the individual units. It'll be for the outlots and the services that are required for the property.
So like mowing the grass and painting the trim and all that sort of stuff is to the individual homeowner?
Correct.
Just like a house?
Correct. Yep.
I
I
believe the
would like
plan
to
is to
just
do,
mention that we do provide a little education on how to upkeep your new house. So all of our homeowners at least have heard about what they're gonna need to do in the future. Roof, siding, painting, what have you, and maintenance on the lawns and shoveling and what have you.
I believe the plan is to do 0 lot line duplexes for each unit, right? And then there'll be a couple outlots in the front and then the rear shared space and the guest parking. Those would be, yeah, HOA maintained.
The question I may have is, and I heard you talking about a pump station, or I'm not sure how much of a pump station it is, but how's that maintained and who is the ownership of that?
At the present time, we are evaluating the actual cost. It's more than I expected it to be, let me put it that way. As it stands now, that clearly would be the HOA responsibility. But it is something I'd like to talk with the village about, helping out and seeing maybe if we can come to a better situation, because it does help the neighbors in the area, and we feel it's a little more than just the 4 units that we're putting in, but that has yet to be determined, I guess, is the best answer I can give you.
What, it's a building with you got submersible pumps, or what are you envisioning there? Is it just something, the standard concrete 4-foot diameter type pump station? I'm not sure. 6 foot?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to defer to Jacqueline and Adam on that one. I don't have that expertise.
Yeah, I believe I don't know if it's in the preliminary plans, but it would be, very similar to what you're saying with submersible pumps.
All right, probably a duplex situation, so you've got redundance, more likely.
Right.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think that, well, obviously you have to talk to the village, but it's, that's a concern. Who's gonna operate it and who's gonna maintain it? Because that will require, it'll work great for 5 to 10 years, but then need some maintenance. Okay. Anybody else have any questions from Plan Commission?
Greg, I have one more for the applicant. With respect to the discussion about lawn mowing, given that you've got 8 families living here on low income, has any thought been given to maybe having a shed with a communal lawnmower so that they're not each purchasing their own lawnmower?
As it stands right now, that wasn't included, but we are only in preliminary design. And those are certainly things that we could consider adding to, the final design, the communal property to help serve as a whole.
Yeah,
There's
just
a single car garage does not have a lot of room.
right. Just something that I thought I'd bring up that, you might want to have discussion about it. I don't know if it would work well or not, but it certainly could save them some money.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I think it's worthy of discussion and exploration for sure.
You bet.
Yeah, I've seen other communities where they have sort of a tool share as well to check out different tools, whether it's string trimmers or, just power tools for building furniture around the house, things like that. Don't know if you've have that in any of your other neighborhoods.
Adam, do you know the answer to that?
No, yeah, not typically. No, I mean, typically most of our shared amenities have been just the typical that you'd find in a condo association or homeowners association. So plowing responsibilities, stormwater, that sort of thing.
Maybe not any of my business, but I can't envision 8 people getting along with one lawnmower. So.
Another challenge. Yeah.
And string trimmer, who buys the string, who takes care of it, who charges it up, who buys the gas? I think they're better off buying their own, but that's
why you got an HOA.
Well, okay.
So can I ask a question about the pumping station?
Certainly.
I'm Chris Sager. I live on Sterling Drive, very close to this area. And I'm wondering if the retention pond is something you think is going to be kind of continually wet or just wet during rainstorms? For one question. And then if it is pumping water out, is that going out into the street to use the storm sewers? Because that is an area that's kind of low, and when we have a big rain, there's some flooding in that area, kind of by Papa Murphy's.
I can answer. The stormwater facility there is meant to be dry. It would only be wet, and it's required to be only wet and designed so that it's only wet for about 2 days after a big storm event. It should only be about 2 to 3 feet deep at maximum. The pumping station or the submersible pumps would be taking those low flows back down the private drive into the existing storm sewer, which a full capacity analysis would be included with the final design to make sure that I think we've done some initial numbers, but that would be further refined and checked.
Okay.
That connects to the storm sewer directly underground, correct? It doesn't go out into the street?
Correct.
Okay.
We also have a retention pond between the 55 and older condos on Sterling Drive and Papa Murphy's, and that's fenced. And I was wondering if this retention pond would need to be fenced also for the safety of the children that might be living in that area.
Generally, dry detention ponds do not need fencing. Wet ponds I have seen fencing around, but this is probably at a maximum only going to be about 2 feet deep during a very large rain event. This is going to be more of a highlight, I think. From the top where that walking path is, it's probably only going to be 3 feet down to the bottom, 3 to 4 feet. And it's going to be at a 4-to-1 slope, I think, is what we designed this for. So it's very gradual. When I say 4-to-1, it's 4 feet horizontal, 1 foot down. So it's a very gradual type of pond with larger, plantings, prairie type plantings around the edges. I think it's something that we wouldn't want to put a fence around it. It could be quite beautiful and enjoyed by everyone in this development.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any more questions from anybody?
The retention pond, is any of that going to require mowing, or you said native grasses? So is it all just going to be left to go on its own?
Typically, those have a stormwater maintenance agreement, which would be taken care of by the HOA, and a dry detention like this would require a regular inspection. And I'm not familiar with what the Village of Oregon requires. Different municipalities have different, either annual, generally annual, some of them are semi-annual, where a firm like Veerbecker would come out and just verify that your inlets and your outlets are not plugged, that they're functioning. It's pretty low cost, and we just make sure that it's functioning per designed and report that to the village.
Patrick, that's correct. This is Jeff. Yeah, we'll be implementing a more stringent annual inspection and follow-up as part of becoming what we call an MS4 community, which is stormwater permitted community. That will require them to do inspections, do maintenance if there's deficiencies and that type of thing. With the prairie grass, they may not have to mow it more than once, maybe once in the spring and once mid-summer or something like that. But for a lot of these, it'll work, it'll function just fine, but it'll kind of depend on how the HOA wants it to look.
Okay. Any more comments? I'm sorry. Anybody else?
This is Mark Sievertson. I just have a question for Habitat. Do you have any information or statistics about parking per unit? Based on your historical information, how many vehicles each unit might be expected to have?
I
I'm-
can. I
My
can probably take
question
that one
really
too.
is kind of about the 2.5 parking spaces, because we've got one vehicle in each garage, one vehicle in each driveway, and then the 5 shared spaces. And that's my understanding, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't think we have any statistics as far as how many cars are typical. I know we've changed over the years with Habitat International, for instance, in an attempt to keep things affordable and keep things as simple as possible. They usually don't like garages at all. We, due to our climate and our location in most of our neighborhoods, we always build at least a single car garage with every unit and try to provide at least one additional parking space. And beyond that, it has been variable based on the family sizes. As I said, we do max out at a 4-bedroom, 2-bath unit. So that kind of automatically precludes families of certain size. But it's not something I think we otherwise track or have stats on.
And there, I'm assuming there will not be any parking allowed on the street, right?
Correct. That was part of the requirements of the fire district, that there would be no parking on the street.
Yeah, I guess really my concern, and it may be not a concern for anybody else, but I just was wondering about the number of spaces and if that was going to be adequate. And it is a pretty compact area.
I believe there is on-street parking on Janesville Street here too on this stretch, right, Jeff?
That I do believe so.
Yeah,
Janesville's kind of funny in some locations, but I do think there is some on-street parking allowed there.
Yeah, there is. I just parked there the other day.
Okay. And you didn't get a ticket, so we're good.
I didn't see any signs. But is that something you might change in the future?
We'll be reconstructing Janesville likely within the next 2 years, and I mean we'll be evaluating it. We don't plan on really changing any of the parking configuration.
Okay.
If anything, we'll refresh the signage and everything, but we'll probably keep it that way at least for now.
Great.
Okay. Any more questions? Comments? All right, then we'll close the public hearing. At this point, then we'll move on to the Plan Commission discussion possible recommendation of the Village Board for Ordinance 21-08 or 6. Approve the GDP for submitted by Habitat for Humanity for Dane County for the development of 769 Janesville Street. Comments from anybody? Plan Commission.
The specifics, I guess the question I've got is, there's a couple of items that are still hanging out there. One is the final stormwater design, which isn't really part of the GDP process. And the call it whatever you want, artifacts, old things, and how they get placed, whether on site or at the historical society or demolished. And again, those are part of the SIP process, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Elise. So on the GDP, it looks pretty straightforward to me. I think that it was brought up that going from 10 to 8 units was a great approach. The plan looks good. The plan works good. They're trying to be good neighbors. For me, I think it's a very solid GDP.
Thank you. Anybody else? You'll see the comments from Elise on the second page of her April 8th correspondence to the Plan Commission. And yes, and the Village Board.
And yeah, you're right. They're a little bit more SIP related, which of course is our next point of discussion. If it's something you want me to just make sure that coordination between the Historical Society happens. I think Habitat's done a really great job being proactive and communicating with the Historical Society. So I imagine that relationship would continue, but certainly, yeah, the stormwater management plan will be part of just, we'll be doing a, the CSM for this property. You'll see at a later meeting too. So there's a couple more reviews before construction would start for any of those details to be ironed out.
I'm also assuming that one of the only other items when this first came to us was there was one neighbor that was pretty vocal. I think it was the one that was right next door.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that they're no longer in the community, but is there any other community members that didn't seem like there was any real other issues with anybody adjacent to the development? I think they've done a nice job, but just curious.
I did hear from the neighbors that have since purchased that property that's just to the west there, where that gentleman lived previously. They had just a couple of clarifying questions, and I pointed them to the packet. I think what was printed in the newspaper was just a little bit grainy, so they had some questions just to kind of make out what was on the plan, but I didn't hear back from them afterwards, so I think all their questions were addressed. I'm not sure if they're on the Zoom call this evening, but no, outright opposition to the project, or I think a lot of the comments that the gentleman had before was about the buffer between his yard and the western side of this property. And I think Habitat's done a good job of keeping that buffer in place and making it a little bit wider, and shifting things a little bit closer to the east. So otherwise, yeah, I've only heard words of support from the community.
Good. Okay, anybody else from Plan Commission? I think it looks good. I think everybody's in agreement with that. So, and I'm sorry I cut you off on that. What did you say, Scott? Anything else?
I had a question just on the procedure here. The item we're on is related to the GDP.
Yes.
In our packet, we had an ordinance 21-06, which is dealing, it appears, more with the rezoning. We haven't previously rezoned this to PD, have we?
No, and we sometimes use those terms interchangeably, but it's a zoning map amendment to change it to plan development. And that zoning change is the GDP, the general development plan. So this is typically what the board actually approves, and we just decided to go ahead and include that ordinance as part of your recommendation to the board. But it's essentially the GDP, proving the GDP. It's got all of the same flexibilities outlined there.
But we don't have to actually hold a hearing for a rezone to rezone it from MR8 to PD first before we approve a GDP?
No, this is the public hearing for the zoning map amendment, AKA rezoning, AKA GDP. It's a lot of alphabet soup being flown around. It's the same process. So this was the public hearing for the zoning step.
Okay, it didn't appear very transparent the way it was listed to me that this is the rezoning step. This looks more like it's the approval of the GDP, and maybe that does the rezoning as well, but I just would have thought we would have indicated this as a rezoning.
Yeah, I think previously we maybe called it the zoning map amendment. So maybe in the future, when we present the ordinance for the GDP, we'll call it by both names just for clarity.
Are you convinced, Scott?
I'm just checking on the procedure here.
Hey, I appreciate the question. I really do. Because you're right. I always remember doing a zoning change and that type of stuff. So. But as long as we're doing the right thing, that's okay. Anybody else?
Matt says it's okay. So.
Oh, well, if the attorney says it, then it's his problem. All right. Any other
questions? Make a motion to approve to the village board the general development plan submitted by Habitat for Humanity of Dane County for the planned development MR8 underlying zoning at 769 Janesville Street pursuant ordinance 21-06.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Molzon.
Okay, thank you, Pat. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to 5B, which is discussion. Possible recommendation of village board, the SIP 769 Janesville Street, submitted by Habitat for Humanity. This is not a public hearing. This is continuing on with the SIP. Staff comments. If you have any.
No major changes from the last 5 minutes, but I'll go ahead and just scroll to the staff reports that again just listed out the same. You know, these would be granted through the GDP, assuming no changes. They meet all the other requirements of the MRA zoning in terms of landscaping, all of that other stuff that's not called out as part of the flexibilities. And again, they are aware of the comments we got from the fire chief. They were again very minor, and then this will still be subject to a certified survey map and other things, but we'll make sure the village engineer and public works director have final review and approval on any construction plans.
Right, and also approval of stormwater management plan, et cetera.
Yep.
Is, and on that, I don't know, Mike or whoever wants to advise us, do we need to put in the motion? We're looking for approval of the SIP recommendation to the village board for approval of the SIP, but there are some comments within the leases. Again, documentation here on the second page from her letter of April 8th, where we talk about compliance with the comments of the village engineer, public works director, or including village engineer, public works director, approval of the stormwater management plan. We don't specifically state that, but how do we encompass that within the motion, which I think we should do, shouldn't we?
Since you normally just say approve, recommend,
Yes.
motion to approve with staff recommendations or with staff conditions of approval.
That's where I was going. I want to make sure that that's understood. Okay, good.
Slavny here,
yes.
I would recommend that we waive the typical SIP requirement to identify exterior building colors. We don't require that for regular 2-family homes, but because this is a planned development, that is a normal requirement. And I'm fine with waiving that requirement because we usually don't require it for 2-family homes. But I could see 20 years in the future, a neighbor versus neighbor disagreement about who got the color first and wanting to avoid repeating colors. And it would be good to clarify that that color requirement was waived as part of this SIP.
Mike, would that mean that it would hypothetically 10, 15 years down the road when they want to reside that there could be multiple units the same color then?
Well, I think that's going to depend on the covenants that apply, through the homeowners association for not allowing repeated color schemes. But because we can't identify specific colors, or the applicant doesn't want to more appropriately, I think we should just clarify that the village doesn't have a role in selecting colors.
But I didn't think that these had an HOA, just the outlying properties did. These are individual, that was one of my questions. These are individual ownership?
Right, but there's the common drive and the pond.
Right, but the siding colors would be on the privately owned parcels.
Yeah, I mean, we still have HOA. We have HOAs on private property subdivisions all throughout the village.
Covenant restriction.
I understand that, but if the HOA doesn't extend to the individual units.
No, it does. I mean, well, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's a question for Habitat. Are there covenants and deed restrictions that apply to the buildings and maintenance of the buildings themselves? And then there's the maintenance of common spaces handled separately.
Yeah, let's not confuse the HOA's existence to maintain and take care of the common areas with also the covenants and restrictions that'll be on the individual owners and their lots and the buildings on the lots. Those are all covered by the HOA. And that, of course, will require your approval. So you get a chance to look at those, obviously, before they go into, existence.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
So I guess what we're trying to say here is we're going to leave it up to Habitat to manage with the homeowners regarding specific color choices for the siding. We're not going to determine which one's blue and which one's brown tonight.
And I think it would be good for either the motion or the minutes for this meeting to indicate that.
Well, I'll make an attempt at a motion. This is Bano. I move approval of the SIP to the village board for 769 Janesville Street, contingent upon staff approval, staff letters, and final HOA documents to be handled by Habitat for Humanity of Dane County. Does that sound right?
Mike's nodding his head. I think Greg just came back in, so Greg, John just made a motion to recommend approval.
That sounded fine to me, John.
You want me to run it while Greg is loading up?
Yeah, it looks like he's still muted, but yeah, why don't you call for a second?
Is there anybody that would like to second that motion?
I'll second that, John.
Thank you, Patrick. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Elise, just let me know when Greg comes back on, would you please?
Yeah, I see him, he's in the meeting, but not fully operational. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll let you know if he's waving us down.
Okay. Moving on, item C, discussion of possible recommendation to the village board regarding the preliminary, easy for someone to say, preliminary replat of Phase 3 Highlands of Netherwood subdivision submitted by Forward Development Group. We'll start out with staff comments. Elise?
All right. So we received the application from FDG for the Highlands of Netherwood neighborhood that encompasses sort of Phase 3 of the property, and apologize for the scrolling. So this area in purple, which includes the planned multifamily area, formerly the Tarkenton parcel, the villas, lot 41, as well as some single family lots in Phase 3. They have a bulk purchaser who is interested in purchasing a large number of single family homes, and part of the product that developer, the builder likes to build is a little bit smaller footprint in terms of lot size. And so there was a request to slightly increase the number of single family lots. And I think it's by 10 from 75 to 85 here. So slight narrowing of the single family lots, but still very generously sized lots, around 7,200 square feet. So slight adjustment of those lots, as well as there's going to be a vacation of a street into a cul-de-sac, and a couple other changes. I'll probably just turn this over to FDG to speak a little bit more to the specifics and the request, but preliminary plat at this point, and then hoping to come back with the final plat to your May Planning Commission meeting. But I'll turn this over to Connor and Jess from FDG to speak a little bit more to the details of the replat.
And I guess we'll move on to the petitioner comments. Thank you, Connor.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone, and thank you for the summary there, Elise. My name is Connor Kearney with Ford Development Group. I'd like to just start out by thanking staff, consultants, and the Plan Commission for the review of these materials associated with this replat for the remaining phases of Highlands and Netherwood. We certainly are excited about the plans for the replat, which we'll discuss in more detail here shortly. Prior to jumping in on the review, I would like to highlight our targeted project timeline, as we are obligated to deliver lots associated with this replat yet this fall. That being said, our ultimate goal is to start construction on the phase 3 infrastructure sometime in the June timeframe, early to midsummer, to accomplish the delivery of lots yet this fall. So it is our hope to receive Plan Commission feedback and a recommendation to the board on our submittal this evening, and we firmly believe the result of the plans in front of you has resulted in a more cohesive community design and an overall improved approach for the development for the remainder of Highlands and Netherwood. So, we very much look forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback on these updated plans. And, at this time, I'd like to introduce JSD's senior planner, Jess Vaughn, who's going to be talking through an overview of the submittal, and she'll touch on some of the critical items being contemplated in the preliminary replat. So with that, Jess, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Connor. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Had a little trouble on Monday night.
Yeah.
That's a relief.
This is Greg Schnell. I apologize. I'm back, I guess.
Okay.
Glad you could join us, Greg.
It wasn't, it is the doggone,
yeah, technology.
Internet. Mm-hmm.
It's that, well, I'm not a computer geek, but okay, that's happened on 2 different computers, so it's not the computers, so.
All right, well, welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, before the commission this evening is a replat of the Highlands of Netherwood subdivision's future phases. So Elise highlighted phase 3, but we're also looking at phase 4 as part of this replat. Originally, for the folks, I'll go into a little bit of background here for the folks that maybe weren't part of the Plan Commission back in 2016. Originally, the Highlands of Netherwood subdivision was platted in 2016. It has a unique design, and that intent of the subdivision was to capitalize on the unique features of and planned amenities, including maintaining the site's natural topography by utilizing a curvilinear street pattern and providing an interconnected meandering pedestrian pathway that provides connectivity through the entirety of the subdivision, from County Highway CC to Netherwood Road and to the large park that's along Netherwood Road. The idea was to, create a unique sense of place as well as provide neighborhood identity. Today, the first and second phases that you see here in yellow and green are pretty well complete, as well as the roughly 5-acre park that is on the northern portion of the subdivision. So with that, we're reconsidering our lot configuration for the future phases, as Elise was saying, but we had the goal of maintaining the overall design intent. But really what our preliminary plat is doing is it's multi-purpose. One is to successfully incorporate the Tarkington parcel into the Highlands of Netherwood subdivision. When we originally had anticipated and thought about the subdivision, we had always thought that the Tarkington parcel was kind of like that missing tooth along County Highway CC, and having that incorporated into the subdivision as a transitional piece from County Highway CC to the single family, that was always contemplated as part of our planning efforts. And I believe a couple of weeks ago, we did see a concept plan and talked about that with the Plan Commission as well for the Tarkington piece, that we have now coined the flats of Highlands of Netherwood. So goal 1 was to successfully incorporate that parcel into the overall subdivision design. We also were looking at stormwater. What we wanted to do is improve the stormwater management facilities located on the subdivision south side by reducing the overall number of stormwater management facilities as well as creating one larger, more regional facility that would accommodate development of the existing subdivision as well as the future phases. And that would include both the new lot 34, which was lot 41, now coined the villas at Highlands of Netherwood. It also includes development that's shown on the former Tarkington parcel and would accommodate the future phase 3 and phase 4 single family residential development. In doing that, we were able to eliminate large retaining walls that were originally planned in that stormwater facility that Elise's cursor is on right now, that outlot 1. There was a pretty big wall in there. So with a larger facility, we had more space for grading and we were able to eliminate a large wall. So that was a good thing on all fronts. And then finally, the replat also in looking at our original final plat and talking with Jeff Brow, there's some minor document plat corrections that need to be documented on dedications of outlots and easements. So we're able to take care of those at this time as well. So multi-purpose for the preliminary plat. Looking ahead to next steps, we are anticipating submitting a final plat here in the coming weeks, as well as a rezoning petition. When we shifted some of the lot lines, we had some minor tweaks to zoning that will need to occur too. So to correct things, because zoning runs along lot lines and we don't want to have any lots with split zoning. So you'll be seeing that as well here in the next couple weeks. Overall, we felt that the proposed replat is in general compliance with the village's ordinances related to development goals and policies, as well as the original design intent for the subdivision. Specifically, thinking about compatibility between what's existing and what's proposed, as well as providing those transitional uses and buffers, and then in addition, encouraging safe and affordable housing and neighborhoods. So that concludes my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, Connor is here as well.
Thank you. I guess you must have taken it over, John. So, okay. You want to continue? You want me to continue now?
Nope, you're here. You feel free to take it over.
For this time being, okay. So, all right, we have staff comments, petitioner comments. Do we have any public comments from anybody other than the petitioner and the staff? Nothing. Okay. It's straightforward again. Elise is recommending approval with a contingency of her. She's got 2 items on the bottom of her documentation, her correspondence dated April 8th. One being a corporation of village engineers' comments of any public works director or public works comments for the final plat, and also annexation of Tarkington parcel at 5264 County Highway CC. So, if we don't have any more questions, I'm sorry, you had something, Lisa?
Just wanted to note that that annexation agreement and ordinance for the Tarkington parcel is planned to be on the Monday, April 19th village board meeting. So coming up in a couple days, that is right around the corner. So finally bringing that into the village.
Hey, Elise, I'm assuming that the change in densities, there's slightly a higher density. It's still within the typical zoning of what we have planned for our subdivisions.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, still similar in lot size. They're very generously sized single family parcels. So.
Okay. And Connor or Jessica, is it Jess or Jessica? I'm sorry.
Usually it's only Jessica if I'm in trouble, so I'll let you pick.
Okay, Jessica.
Oh, shoot.
Connor or Jess, the question I've got is, you had mentioned in your presentation, Jess, about this is at a different, there's lots will be more affordable, so that these homes will be at a different price point, roughly, maybe? Is that what you were getting at, or is that not the intention by making the lots slightly smaller?
Jess, I can jump in on this one if
Okay.
you want, but the intent, overall on a percent basis, the market can typically only bear a certain number. So your average consumer is not going to look at a price per square foot for the lot sizing. So on a 12,000 square foot lot versus an 11,500 square foot lot, the average consumer is not going to say, okay, that's justifiable to pay, $10,000 more. So what we found in looking at the market, as Elise mentioned, these lots are relatively generously sized. So, there are a few that will be more at an affordable price point, and those are focused probably closer to that transition from the flats of Highlands and Netherwood. There you can see some smaller lots in that area. Relatively speaking, they're still largely sized, but overall it's not going to be too great of a fluctuation in home values of what you're seeing out there right now. It's just we're able to gain yield simply because of unused lots based on market demand or unused square footage.
And I'm guessing too, Jess, that maybe your comment about affordability is just offering, with the different housing products that are going to be part of this replat with the flats as a multifamily,
Yep. So we
buildings,
do
and
have
then the villas with the smaller lots. We've got different price points for folks.
Yep, and we have a couple of different product types in here. So the traditional single family lots, those will be your traditional single family detached houses. Then we have an attached rental product that's kind of, it has the appearance of individual kind of what I would say are condos, but it's intended to be market rate rental product. And then the villas on lot 34 there, that is a single family detached product, but a smaller product, but it is intended to be a condominium style development. So, which is a little bit different than your traditional single family detached lot. So you have a couple of different product types. I think the villas is more geared towards kind of those empty nesters or maybe a starter home.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody have any more comments?
I have a question with respect to the paths. I don't know, Lisa, if you can jump to that slide. The question is your western boundary. There appears to be a path to nowhere, a couple paths to nowhere. One is off Denmark Circle.
Yeah.
But particularly the one that's heading south off of Walter Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not nowhere. You know about that. That's to the future Hermsen Conservancy Park.
Okay.
Yep. Those will dead end for now. But if and what time that Conservancy Park is deeded over to the village, then that'll be the community, the neighborhood access there to that park.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Anything else? I think it's pretty well answered. At least you feel comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
So we then need a motion, recommend the village board approval of the preliminary plats or the preliminary replat of Phase 3 Highlands of Netherwood subdivision submitted by Forward Development Corporation, including Elise's recommendations of April 8th. We have a motion to that effect.
So moved. Molzon.
Molzon, we have a second.
Second, Mar.
And Mar. Okay, we have a motion with seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5D, Delta. Conceptual discussion with Mr. Mason, potential annexation of property along Lincoln Road, Blue Haven Farms.
All right, so a couple things have changed in the last day, as per my understanding of this request. So I'm actually going to purposely not show this map at the moment, but I will toggle to a different exhibit here in a moment. But Jeff Mason is an area resident. He's looking to build sort of a rural homestead property for himself and his partner to have a horse and garage to work on cars, sort of a rural home, and so looking all around the area for a couple of years and identified a piece of property that's on the south side of Lincoln Road near the water tower. It's currently owned by Blue Haven Farms, Roger Parsons. This land is currently shown in the comp plan as planned neighborhood. It's within the town. So the property is the Blue Haven Farms main property is this one shown here with the green star. So here's Bryn Hill, Bergamot Boulevard with the clubhouse just to orient folks, and the water tower is right here. So the original request actually was Jeff was interested in purchasing property from Roger where this red star was shown. In the last couple of weeks, that property is no longer available to Jeff, so he's shown kind of a revised plan. But the recommendation and the discussion we'd like to have with the Planning Commission is, given that this property is planned neighborhood, we do anticipate sometime in the future neighborhood, type development on the south side of Lincoln Road when this land is eventually brought into the village. Our recommendation would be to annex as much property as possible and then allow for any splits. So the farm is out of splits in terms of its county zoning, what's allowable, hence the request to annex so that the split could happen and Jeff Mason could develop his home. So let me just transition over to the image that I was sent earlier today by Jeff Mason. So this is this parcel here includes kind of this purple rectangle area, the green, as well as the Blue Haven Farms, with the farm buildings and home here. So what is now being discussed is Jeff purchasing both the purple and green parcel. The orange area is approximately where he's looking to build a house, and the green area would be an area that would be leased from Jeff to the farm for continued ag use at this time. At this time, Jeff isn't planning on doing any, additional splits, anything like that. It would just, again, be a sort of a rural homestead, property. There'd be shared access from the shared driveway off of Lincoln Road, so not looking to add any additional entry points or driveways onto Lincoln Road. The Roger Parsons is on board with annexing the property and understands why the village would want to do that in long term. We don't want to have sort of all this piecemeal development and then turn around and down the road try to do a more large scale planned neighborhood design. So this is our way of sort of limiting that. We would likely recommend, if this moved forward, both of these parcels, once the property is split, would be zoned rural holding so that the ag uses could continue, and if there was any livestock, horses that Jeff might want to have on site, that does require a conditional use permit for rural holding for animal husbandry. So that would be addressed at a later time. But just wanted to get the Planning Commission's thoughts on this, and it was our attorney, Matt Dragney's recommendation that this property be annexed and try to annex as much property as we can in this transaction to begin to bring some of that land that we see for future planned neighborhoods into the village. So I think Jeff Mason is on the line. He can probably speak a little bit more to his plans for the property, conversations he's had with Roger, but just wanted to bring this before you and get your thoughts on this request.
Hi there. I'm Jeff Mason. Thank you guys all for the time and letting me speak. Elise summed it up, I think, very well. As she said, been living in the village, I guess, for the past 10 years in a rental property. I have a horse that's boarded at a farm in Stoughton. I've been in horses my whole life and have always wanted to have as she said, rural homestead the horse. I like working on my car, like to have a shop, small shop. I'm not talking about a commercial shop. I'm talking about just a shop building where I can put my cars, work on cars, and have a rural space. That has been incredibly difficult to find. And my longtime girlfriend and I have been looking for land for quite literally years. And we really, really hope we have finally come to the end of this search. As Elise said, this has been a pretty, little bit of a change here in the last 48 hours, basically, to this other part of Rogers land. So the only, I guess, iffy part here is the orange section where I am pretty confident that's where the home would be. But again, this has changed within Rogers land, the lines of this recently. So I guess I can't swear on a Bible today that the orange box is exactly where the house would be. But beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have about my intended uses for it. I plan on keeping the vast majority of it, not just the green box, but most of the purple box leased to Roger for continued agricultural use, at least for the short term. Roger is an older guy, and he has stated that he doesn't necessarily want to continue farming for forever. And so my hope would be to build a home basically immediately, and then as time and money permits, add a small stable and a outbuilding to work on my car.
Okay. Comments from anybody? Questions?
Please.
I had one question concerning the urban service area, and does our urban service area include south of Lincoln Road?
Yeah, that's a great question, Larry. So right now our urban service area does not extend south of Lincoln Road. We did confirm with CARPC if that would need to be amended if this was brought into the village, and the answer right now is it would not. There is water service available to this property that's village water, so Jeff will be able to connect to that to his new home, but the urban service area doesn't need to be expanded unless we're providing sanitary sewer service to this property. We, as part of the annexation agreement, if this would move forward, we would just require that when sanitary service is extended along the stretch of Lincoln Road, that he would be required to connect into that and then pay any associated, connection fees. But the urban service area can remain as is if it's just water service.
Okay.
This is Mike Slavny. Jeff, the color doesn't extend all the way to Lincoln Road. Would it be your intention for the lot to reach Lincoln Road?
That is the way these boxes are drawn right now is what Roger has requested that he would like to sell me. I have no problem purchasing out to there. It was my understanding, I guess I can't speak, I'm not going to speak for Roger what he wants to do with it. This was our conversation. He's like, I'd like to sell you the piece from basically there's a small piece of land that clearly belongs to the water tower. And basically from the lot line of the water tower back is the direction where he wanted to sell it to me. That's not my decision. If we needed to go up there, I guess that's another conversation, but it didn't seem critical to me, as my understanding, a big part of this was that since I wasn't going to be cutting a new driveway into Lincoln, and I was going to be coming off of the existing driveway of Rogers, that it didn't seem critical to have road frontage.
Right. Our zoning code requires that a lot in the rural holding zoning district have a minimum of 50 feet of frontage on a public street.
Okay. I don't see a reason why I'm guessing Roger didn't know that. I don't see a reason why we couldn't redraw this. There's nothing magical, and I want to really emphasize that there's nothing magical about the boxes that you're seeing here. My intention is to own you know, in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 acres, depending on how this all cuts out.
And we aren't really talking about the land division tonight. So I just wanted to give you a heads up early on.
I appreciate that, and I can certainly have that conversation with Roger.
Yeah.
I don't see that being a problem.
I also wondered if he just drew the easiest to draw rectangle at this point and didn't want to extend the purple up here or something, but yeah, it sounds like this has all come together recently, so I imagine it would be refined a little bit if things continue to move forward.
One question that I have, this is Greg. One question I have is you have that orange box there representing possibly the location of a residence. If and when this ever becomes annexed into the village, and for some reason one wants to be, you know, subdivided further, is that going to affect the layout of the plat to any large degree, or can it be worked around? And John, maybe you can tell that better than I can. I don't know. Or Mike Slavny. Is that something workable in the future?
I don't know if we have the ability or right to say anything. But
we don't. I'm just bringing it up because sooner or later, if in fact they want to annex, they have to understand that that might be a problem for them.
Well, the decision to subdivide further would be the property owners.
Correct.
I would make the observation that the width of the purple area is almost perfectly the width required for a street down the middle, north-south, and lots on each side. In the long run future, when Jeff or some other subsequent property owner, you know, makes a decision they don't want to have horses. So I think it's an ideal shape property. Given that it's kind of happenstance, I think it would work fine for long run development potential within the village.
Okay.
Right. And Greg, just to clarify, Jeff would be looking to annex probably sometime in the pretty near future. If he would purchase this property, the county has, well, Blue Haven Farms is out of their allowed number of splits for the property. So rather than just split the lot again, leave it in the town and sell it to Jeff, Roger's out of his split. So the only way to portion off land is to annex into the village and then come under village zoning for a partial.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's just, well, again, now, if we annex it, then we're still gonna, so we're not going to extend, I shouldn't say we're not. It depends on what the owner wants to request. If we annex it, that property would be within the village limits, correct? And that's a large parcel of property to be within the village limits.
Right.
Okay, and it would be.
Would be kind of our first little tooth of the south side of Lincoln Road coming into the village. And again, at this time, just water service is available out there, not sanitary sewer.
Right. Right. So maybe it would, you know, I'm just looking at, well, not my business. So okay, fine, get it. All right. I don't have any problem with it. I don't know if anybody else had any issues.
I've got a question on the original submittal in our packet, the orange parcel in there that was Jeff's potential purchase site. You said that was no longer available. Are we still talking that would be annexed along with the green and the purple areas? And is it the entire farm that would still be annexing altogether, or are there multiple parcels here?
So my understanding at this time, it would just be one parcel brought in. So this entire parcel would be the one that would be annexed. This parcel has actually been purchased by a neighbor in the meantime, who's currently in the town and would not be looking to do any development or anything like that. So I don't believe there would be, that's owned by somebody else at this point, or will be shortly. So there wouldn't be any motivation for them to annex into the village at this time.
All right. I don't see a problem with it. Anybody else have a problem with it? I guess not.
All right. Well, I'll continue to work with Jeff and the rest of our staff to sort of iron out next steps and imagine you might be seeing more of him in the future.
All right, great, great.
Thank you so much for all of your time. Have a nice night.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, is there any other public appearances?
You made it.
Okay, communications, miscellaneous business. We have a next regular meeting on Thursday, May 6th. I'm being told I may not be here that day. I'm not sure yet. But we'll see. We'll see how it happens. I might be seeing grandchildren. I'm not sure yet. It's not in stone, so maybe I'll be here. But anyway, it's the 6th. Future meetings during the summer. June 3rd, July 1st, August 5th. August 5th, I will be on vacation with my entire family. I will not be at the meeting. I think I'm still I'm not being reappointed. Am I for Plan Commission? Am I still?
Well, I was going to mention, so the new board has their organizational meeting this coming Tuesday, April 20th. And then our next meeting, May 6th, Mike asked me to put on the agenda to reappoint a chair and vice chair. So you can decide if you want to, nominate yourself or not. That time, but we'll have a new village board rep.
True. Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, my question was, I don't remember. I don't think my term's up yet as far as being.
It's not, Greg. You're still on.
Oh, good. Okay.
We're stuck with you for longer.
I just wonder, well, I'm just, whether it doesn't matter. My concern is whether or not I'm actually still on the Plan Commission, making sure I can be there.
We're counting the meetings, but you're still on.
Thank you.
Don't worry, Greg, we'll get that appointment railroad handled for you too.
Maybe I better be here for that one. We'll see. So.
Yeah.
All right. So
you're not here.
Thanks. I'm glad we got this all straight throughout the summer. But again, like I say, obviously I'm going to be on the Plan Commission the way it sounds. I have not, my term's not up yet. So I will be gone August 5th. I will have my entire family and grandchildren all together for a week. Northern Wisconsin. Okay. Next item, Jeannie. Thank you so much.
Thanks for putting up with me, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, there was no putting up with you. You've been a wonderful asset, and I really enjoyed you having us as our village president. So
thanks, Jeannie.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, gonna miss you guys.
Yeah.
Enjoy some time off.
Yeah. You can always come down, it's really, well, I don't know when the heck we're ever gonna get back together.
We could even keep you on the payroll, Jeannie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it's so stellar.
Okay, so
Thank
Jeannie,
you.
thanks again so much. We really appreciate your help. Okay, unfinished business. I don't see any new business. Things that are there. No action we take and TIF policy. Oh, wait a minute. 8A. Yeah, we have something you want to talk about on here, Elise, on tax, the TIF, or is somebody going to talk about that?
Yeah, I will. I've been trying to wait for a light planning commission meeting, and I realize that's never going to happen. So I just put this on the agenda to get it off my desk. But we worked on this a little bit last year. I've been getting a lot of requests from, businesses that may or may not have pursued development in the village, but just about TIF policy. What is TIF? What's your application look like? What's the process we go through with Ellers, all of that. So this is just a first pass. We don't need to spend too much time on this tonight, but I wanted to just get this in front of you. If you want to read it over the next month or two, we can bring it up at another meeting. But
yeah, I'd like to understand a little better myself. So, okay.
Yeah. So
Great.
some overview of, again, what is TIF, the but-for analysis. But for TIF, this project would not be financially possible. What are eligible costs within TIF grants from the village? And then we have our TIF boundary map, which actually need to amend now that our TIF 4 is now moved out 6 years, so it's
42. Yep.
2042.
Yep.
Okay.
We have our policy, and this hasn't been adopted by the board or anything at this point either. So these are all up for negotiation. We do have the goal of trying to retain a quarter of the increment that's generated by new development and reinvest that in the TID for infrastructure and other public improvement projects. So sometimes that happens that's always the goal on projects. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And then got kind of a draft of a TIF application, pulled this from a couple different communities and pieced together the pieces that we liked. In terms of just making sure we have a consistent amount of information provided for future TIF requests.
All right, good.
Yeah, so just wanted to get this in front of you again, the budget analysis, but we can, if you have any comments or suggestions, we can take those and we can maybe bring it back to a future meeting and have you all make a recommendation to the board. And if they adopt it, we'll get it up on the website.
All right, great. I actually appreciate it. I do want to read that. It's I get questions, so I want to be able to understand it better. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, staff reports. Village still looks pretty busy. I see an awful lot of building going on in the southwest side. Is that right?
Yeah, as I said, the Coyle apartment building behind the hotel, I believe, is going to be open for folks to move in July.
Wow.
Looking really nice if you haven't driven back by there lately.
I haven't, but yeah.
Lots of, single family homes. The Autumn Ridge phase 1 is almost entirely built out.
Yeah, that's sprung up in 2 years, I think is what.
Yeah. Just to provide you with an update on Autumn Ridge. So the developer Glenn Hofer has decided just to pursue phase 2 at this time, which is the side on the west side of just south of phase 1. Phase 3 would be addressed at a later date. So we're planning, we just actually received the preliminary plat submission from them today. So that'll be on your May 6th Planning Commission meeting for initial review. And then we'll have to do the urban service area amendment process with CARPC. And I think we have that slated for like their July and August
All right.
meetings this summer.
Jeff, anything else that's exciting about what's going on in the village as far as streets and things?
Well, you probably see, we had a public information meeting last week on North Main Street, which will be our big project this year. Utilities, some water main, and then the biggest noticeable change will be new roadway on North Main Street from Grove all the way even out north out of the town, out of the village. It's going to be a joint project with, actually, we'll have a utility contractor, and then we'll be joint splitting the cost with Dane County doing the road work.
Wow. Okay.
So that's going to cause some disruption, and some people are concerned about that, understandably. But Dane County does a great job, and we'll be stressing our contractor we'll keep accesses open to buildings or to businesses, and yeah, it'll go well.
I just got one. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I just got one comment, and I want to make sure that this comes across correctly. Oh yeah, yay! I'm glad.
Very much so. We are too. We are too.
Yeah,
it's hard. I think the biggest concern, John, from some of the businesses is we are coming out of a tough year for businesses.
Yeah.
And the end result of this is there's never a good time to do these. And we'll all admit that with the past year, it makes even a not so good time a little worse. But I'm very encouraged by the resiliency of our residents. We have lots of alternative access points for businesses, and we're going to be doing lots of things with the chamber to try to alleviate some of any fears that there are that this could be harmful to business.
Okay, great. Items for future meetings, we've all seen those before, so okay. And Jeannie, again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, dudes.
All right, we may have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a good evening.